Bam.
This is Christopher Endrinal, and you're watching The Break It Down Show.
We get down around here. We do things, man. And one of the things I love is I love the fine arts. And in modern sense, U2 is a fine art band. They do things. I think it's fair to say, among all the things that U2 is great or greatest, or there's no one greater at, they make the best movies for bands. I don't know a band that has made more high quality movies. The U2 3D movie, best 3D movie you could see.
Oh man, that was incredible.
The movie you see, like the image you're standing in front of.
Yeah.
I went to the movie of the concert, and here's the thing. This is crazy. I'm there, and so we were on the floor and I saw see the live shows, and then when I were up in the stands watching the movie, I was like, "Am I at a movie or am I at a concert?"
Yeah.
And at one point, everybody was singing. So I'm like, people don't just sing at movies, maybe like in the 40s or something. But I looked around, like, are people actually singing? And I'm like, well, not everybody. Oh my God, the sound is so great in the sphere.
Right. Yeah.
That yes, there were people singing at a movie, which is incredible. But also, everybody in the movie was singing with us.
Yeah. It's like a meta experience, right?
Yeah.
It's the staging has always been a big part of what U2 does, right? Which illustrates just how cognizant U2 and in this case Bono is of showmanship, right? Like when you go on stage, you can't just walk out on stage. Like you have to be prepared. Like this is his job, right? And so like I have gone on stage and I presented. I have sung in front of 45,000 people, right? I know what it takes, and you cannot it takes a really special person to improvise something like that, right? And so when you're a professional performer, there's a lot that goes on to put on something like this, and it's not just being familiar with the line so that when he's reading from the teleprompter, it feels natural. It's so much more than that. Like the lines are like the last thing, right? It's everything from the concept of it, right? So planning this, like, well, what if I turn this book into a show? All right, I'm going to integrate music into it, but it's only going to be me. So how am I going to do this? So this is a personal journey. I'm actually narrating a personal journey, so it's got to be appropriately emotional. Right. But like it can't stray too far to either to any one arm, or else you lose the whole thing, which is really hard to pull off. And U2 always pulls it off, which is remarkable, which it speaks volumes about their showmanship, especially Bono's. He's quintessential frontman, and so he's been in front of people for 45 years now, right? Going on 50. So he knows how to carry himself, but it's awesome. It was nice to see it without the three in this setting, because it was a little bit of a different side of Bono, I think.
Yeah. There's a lot in there. When I think about the amount of preparation that goes into the work that they do. Yeah. First off, what they get to do in terms of like money is not going to be an object. They're not trying to do things to save money. They're doing things to make them works of art. The creativity, the team of creative people around Bono and the band, they don't just he didn't just get to, I want to pull the book down. He doesn't just get to write a memoir, which is already a great, like if you ever wanted to be a rock star, like this is not about we banged 15 chicks in a motel, like there's so much more in this. It's this life that he's led outside of music, and the book will stand on its own merits. Oh, by the way, and this is just Pete saying this, there is no finer audio version of a book ever. This thing is incredible in audio. So that's planned out. And so it's not just like, and then I read the book and, no. I mean, and that's great. That's great to just read a book straight and have it be wonderful. But there's so much more in it. And then there's an album. And then there's a book tour. That's way more than a book tour. And then you have this movie comes out. Oh, and by the way, they opened this international, amazing, paradigm changing theater where you can go see the most amazing. I can't even think of how much work and money it took to make all of these things in I don't know, how many years was it? 3 years or something? I mean, how many years of plan? No wonder it's been 10 years since they released a full new album.
Oh, I know.
They've been
right?
busy.
Yeah, well, this book project that I've been working on this past year, like I've been listening to all of the music from all of the eras, and it's been interesting to hear and to read the common themes that are woven in, and what themes are more focused on at different parts of their career, because what they do in the 90s is not just different sonically or aesthetically. They explore different themes, and they explore the old themes from a radically different perspective, lyrically and artistically as well. And so it's been really interesting to consume all of this all at once, right? Because in my daily life, I usually don't, right? I'm of course a huge U2 fan, but often I go through these moods or these stages where I'm like, all right, well, I've been on an Octung Baby kick lately, or I'm on a Rattle and Hum kick, but I've been on a U2 kick, right? So I've been listening to like everything, like October. I was on an October kick for a while, which is weird because nobody gets on an October kick, right?
Yeah.
And I've been listening to pop a lot, and there are, pop gets shit on within the community, and if you listen to it and if you think about it from a certain perspective, okay, it's probably not your cup of tea, but there's some good stuff on there, man, and it's good stuff in a very U2 way. It's buried, which is why it's hard for people to access it, right? But it's there, and you can read my dissertation if you want to find out more about that. But just listen to it, right? Listen to it with an open mind. And U2, this movie, Stories of Surrender, right? With the gig at the Sphere and Songs of Surrender and the book. This whole like the past 2.5, 3 years feels like the coda to me of their fifth style period, right? I've divided U2's. Well, I think the consensus is that U2's career can be divided into 5 style periods, right? Style period 1 is Boy, October, and War. Style period 2 is Unforgettable Fire, Joshua Tree, Rattle and Hum. Style period 3 is the 90s, Octung Babies, Europa, Pop. 4 is All That You Can't Leave Behind, Atomic Bomb, and No Line on the Horizon. And number 5 is what I call their reflection, or their reflective period. Songs of Innocence, Songs of Experience, where they step out of themselves and reflect on their own careers, right? That's what those Innocence and Experience albums are. And then Songs of Surrender are them reflecting on their own songs. So it's like it's meta on meta, right? And turning that memoir into an album, into a book, into whatever the order was. All of this feels like a coda. And now, Bono's getting a lot of press about U2's in the studio now with the new album. Like it feels like the coda to style period 5 simultaneously and it's also simultaneous as the springboard into what's next, because both U2 and Edge have been talking about, doing something different, particularly doing something a little more rock centric, which I'm all for. Bring back the guitar. I want to see what Edge has cooked up over the past decade.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about this chunk of work. Is it a suite? I definitely agree about putting the different eras together and dividing. I basically would divide them exactly how you divide them. And again, like, because they've got more time, they've always been a band that wasn't forced to release an album every 18 months, right? They've always taken their time with these things, and they make a lot of stuff. And so really, this is a really fertile time, because was the Joshua Tree, it was 2017. And then there was something almost immediately after that. I can't remember what it was that. And then there was this short little break for COVID, and then the book, and then it's just like lots of projects. Right.
Lots of. Well, yeah, it was summer of 17 was the Joshua Tree anniversary tour, and then December of 17 is when Songs of Experience came out, and then summer of 18 was the Experience and Innocence tour, right? And then Not much in 19, and then 20, COVID happened, right?
Right.
And then little break for the whole world, and then all of a sudden, like, stuff ramps up, right?
Really
With
fast.
Book and Songs of Surrender, like a revisiting, which is, there are some quotes by Bono from probably 15 years ago saying, we don't ever want to be a retro band. We don't ever want to be a band that just plays our hits.
Heritage Act, right?
And then, and I'm like, oh, but you're of course going to come out with a best of compilation. You're of course going to come out with a new take album, and that's what Songs of Surrender was. But I think, again, right, if you view it from a particular perspective, from a certain perspective, U2 is always reflected on the past. That's what U2 sings about, right? Whether it's political past, whether it's religious past, whether it's personal past, romantic, whatever, relationship past, it's always a reflection. They're always looking back in order to understand where they got now, in order to adjust the direction for the future, because that's how history works. And our boys are well read. They're very keenly aware of history, and so that's why they do this. Again, and Songs of Surrender may not be everyone's cup of tea. I can certainly understand that. There's some tracks on there that that are not my favorite, but I think it's a nice little coda to what they've done. And I welcome what they're doing now, especially if Larry's back in the studio, and he's taking time off, and fingers crossed that recovery is going well, so that he can be his full self. Because if he's been his full self and he hasn't been able to perform or create in a couple of years, then he's got a backlog of ideas back there, as any artist does. And so, and as we know, as U2 fans, something magical happens when the four of them get together in the studio. And that's exciting. If all four of them are in there and are excited to be there, right?
Yes.
That's key. Is not that they're just all there, but that the spark is there.
This isn't 100% true, but it correlates well. When the rhythm section destroys, just kills on a song, they get to a special place. And I'm not saying that the rhythm section doesn't always do a great job, but there's something when those two rail cars lock together, and it's just, you're like, oh my God, this song is just, it's powerful. And so, yeah, the buy-in, it's one thing to go out and they've talked about, really good being the enemy of great, and they want greatness, right? Did you watch I don't know if you watched the interview on Joe Rogan's show. Did you watch that at all?
I caught clips of it. Joe Rogan's not my
But
I have caught clips of it, of course, because they've been making the rounds, and
I would put it on you to make sure you watch it, because I think it's important, and they get to some spots that Bono, Joe does a good job with getting people to really dig into where they're at. So setting aside like the Joe Rogan stuff. These are two artists who are apex artists in their world, and they are vibing in a way that is very revealing, in a way that other people couldn't, because they haven't had to figure out what it's like to be in front of an audience. So this just means in general, like I think you would enjoy it. Anybody else who watches it or watches Rogan in general will see it, but they may not get all of the things that these guys are going back and forth about. Right. One of the things, that reflection, they get into this a little bit. First off, I think it was In God's Country, Rogan's like, we were tripping on shrooms in the right place at the right time with the right song. And he's like, and it's impacted his entire life, Chris, his entire life. He's thought about this moment and what it means, right? And so he's informed by U2's and Bono's work. So there's some big nuggets in there. And then also the reflection of looking back, and Bono's talking about Sinatra. He's like, oh, please, you have to invite me back to talk about Sinatra, because I can't shut up about this guy, because he obviously loves him. And he said that one of the things he was exposed to when he was there was an older man version of Sinatra singing "I Did It My Way." And he's like, and it's an apology. I think it's what he said, an apology, instead of, he changed the song. And well, there's a seed and something they do.
It's interesting you mentioned changing the song, because there are two moments that stand out to me. I have some notes here. There are two moments that upon first viewing, I was like, ooh, that Bono changes the focus of a song, right? And both songs initially had to do with his mother, Iris, who is, of course, the most important figure in his life. And, her death set the foundation for everything else that came afterwards. But the first one was he was talking about, or he was singing, or he was talking about the band forming, but he was using the song "I Will Follow," which was written about a boy's grief, about an 18-year-old boy's grief about his mother's death. But he used it in the context of his bandmates, and I thought that was a nice little switch, right? It was a nice little parallel because, of course, when Iris died, there was a huge vacuum in Bono's life, and part of that vacuum was filled by the three other guys that he formed U2 with, right? It took a little bit of time to form, but part of that was eventually filled. And then the other one was when it was later on in Stories of Surrender, where Bono was talking about his dad, and his dad was dying, right? He was talking about his dad having cancer, and Bono sang words from Iris, but within the context, which is about his mother, of course, right? But he sang it within the context of getting to know his father at the very end of his life. And I thought that was a brilliant little switch. And I thought it was a nice little tribute to both his mother and his father, because, Bono has always held his mother in high esteem, but has always had a difficult relationship with his father. Raise your hand, gentlemen out there, if that sounds familiar.
Wow.
Yep. And so, but one of the big points of Stories of Surrender is that, Bono finally got to know his dad, or at least got to know him better, right? After so many years of both of them, like, kind of putting up a wall. First his dad, and then Bono, because he became Bono. But I thought it was a lovely tribute that Bono used a song that he wrote about his mother, the most important figure in his life. And he sang the words "Hold me close, like someone that you might know," but like he sang it in a whisper about his father. And I thought that was extremely touching and a nice little switch up. Which again, as a music analyst and a music interpreter, I was like, ooh, I was frothing at the mouth, right?
Yeah.
So this shows again, Bono's cognizance that songs are meant to be interpreted in different ways, and the meanings of songs and the audience of songs can change over time depending upon the context and depending upon your relationship to the song. And that's what I think is brilliant about Songs of Surrender, because it shows how the band's relationship to the songs has changed, right?
Yeah.
Which, and again, this is reflection. So this is a story about how Bono's relationship with his dad has changed, and that he thought of his dad finally in the same light that he thought of his mother. That was huge for him. And I'm excited to hear the music that he writes after that revelation.
There's so much in it, because Bono and the band, they pack so much into these things. But this is credit, and this is why, look, it's hard to withstand, like, the U2 is the greatest band, because they just do stuff like this, and you just peel back a layer. I mean, as he dealt with his dad's stuff, even earlier on in the early 2000s, that he's like my big brother. He's like, he's guiding me through this time of uncertainty and conflict, and like Bono. And I think he says this in the Rogan interview. He got to know his dad even more as he performed him every night.
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
I do too. And it makes me a little bit emotional, because I think about, I'm more friendly now with my dad now that he's gone. He can't hurt anybody anymore, and I can appreciate him more, and the challenges that he had in front of him, because it's easy to see it from my point of view. Right. But partly because of some guy named Paul Hewson, I can understand that, hey, like, there's more there, and when I'm ready for it, I can start to tear it apart. Here's a little bit of a guidebook on how I did it. Signed, Paul. You're welcome.
Well, Bono even says that in the movie, right? He's like, I finally started to think of it from his perspective, from Bob Hewson's perspective, right? Like, oh shit, that's a pretty crappy hand. Your wife dies of an aneurysm she suffered at her own father's funeral. I mean, how much more tragic or tragically Irish can you get?
Yeah.
Right. And so, I don't know how anybody else would react, but that would F me up real bad. I don't care how old or how experienced or how young I was. So, I think it was nice of Bono, and it was very mature of Bono to be like, oh, okay, my dad, all right. Part of that wasn't his fault then. Okay. He was carrying a lot of baggage. And I think, at your age, I'm just a little bit younger than you are, but I am getting to that place too that I'm like, my mom and dad, yeah, okay, all right, not perfect parents.
Right.
Did a fine job with the tools that they had. I could probably make a list of where they could have been better, but overall, not so bad. Which 10, 15 years ago, I was not in that place.
Sure.
10, 15 years ago, Bono wasn't in that place.
Yeah. Yeah. And then how do you be a dad when you're Bono? And he talks a good bit about this stuff, in some of the art. I think it was Esquire piece talks a little bit about that in there.
That was a good piece.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because he understands, he does kind of just jump into their lives at various points and jumps out because he's got to go do things, and there's songs about these kind of things. So he's got his own unique challenge, but also can look at that from a very interesting lens.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about my relationship with my parents, and then, which of course is beginning to help me reflect on my relationship to my own kids, right? I've been on sabbatical this past year, and the greatest part of my sabbatical was the hour and a half that I have in the morning with my son, because my wife leaves with our twins for their school at about 7:15, 7:20, and I was responsible for getting my son to his school at about 9 o'clock. So we had this time. And not every day, but, a fair amount of days, we would hang out in the same room and he would watch me work. And sometimes he would just sit with his own book and read his own book while I would work on my own stuff. But many times he would either be watching me or he would be asking questions about, "Ooh, what is that about?" Or "What are you writing about today?" And I'm like, "Well, son, let me tell you," right? It was an amazing bonding experience that I've been very careful not to force YouTube onto my kids, because it's the surest way of getting them to hate it, right?
Of course.
So, I just spent this past year at home doing nothing but U2. And so, but I tried my hardest not to talk about it unless they asked. And then if they asked questions, I was like, well, come step into my office, almost quite literally. And so this whole father-son relationship, parent-child, but specifically father-son relationship, has been put into very sharp relief lately. And then with this Stories of Surrender, which, really is, it's primarily a chronicle of Bono's relationship with his father. I mean, it resonated with me. It hit home. Like, of course I'm a Bono fan. I'm a fanboy. Call me whatever you want, but it was highly emotional. And I think partly because I'm a fan, but partly because, I see a lot of what Bono is talking about in terms of parent-child relationships in my relationship, both as a parent and also as a child.
Back to I Will Follow. They do a great job. It's one thing you sit in the audience at the not book tour, and you have all the excitement. You have your phone fucking put away, which I love. I love that. It was great. But the ability to do what a movie can do, and the wonders of all of that, they get in really close, and you get to see him, not just the stage version, but this up close. It was wonderful. And I think, again, maybe on Rogan he talks about it, and he makes that whole thing. He lets us all know that, hey, we practice all of our songs about 100 yards away from where my mom was buried, right?
The Yellow House.
And so as they're talking, Eddie's talking about I Will Follow, there is the thing about the band and everything, right? And then how it all comes together. But there's also, and I think, and maybe as he was saying this, I'm like, did he really say this? And I think he did. I think it was on Rogan. It's also a bit of a suicide note,
Sure, of course.
He's so broken, right? That he, and so he's drawing to this band, but also drawn towards this void that he can't even deal with because the house is too broken.
Oh yeah. Yes. Bono has talked about that in the past, about how the lyrics of I Will Follow suggest that, that whole, well, if you're not going to be here, then I don't want to be here.
Right.
Which, sounds extreme, but when you're 14 and you lose the figure in your life, what else? I mean, that's not only understandable, but in some ways, like, kind of a natural thought process, like, well, geez, we in my household, we are no strangers to death. When we moved into this house, we moved in with my in-laws, and 6 months after we moved in, they both died within 3 days of each other. And you know, they loved our children. They had a great bond, and so you know, it was hard and you know, emotionally wrenching, especially for my wife, obviously. But death is not a topic that we shy away from talking about in our house. It's the exact opposite of what happened in the Houston household. Right? As soon as Iris died, she was never spoken of again. Which, as I'm doing research for this book and as I'm combing through song lyrics and listening to albums, it completely affected how Bono wrote songs, and completely affected how he approached writing about subjects like grief. And I'm actually not exactly sure where I was going with that one, but just, you know, the subject of death is a hard one. And this is weird. And I've always appreciated you two for never backing down from making a song about a hard subject. And that's actually one of the things that I'm writing about. That, you know, Bono as a lyricist has never been afraid of saying, yeah, fuck your feelings. This is what I'm singing about. You know, because I have to, because you're not paying attention. Whatever it is, whatever, you know, whether it's a romantic relationship or whether it's, you know, third world debt or, you know, extreme poverty and hunger and everything in between. I've always appreciated that is one of the core aesthetics of rock and roll, is to, you know, get in the face of the man and make sure that the man hears that, it's not a hunky dory, bro.
And there's still protest songs and that kind of thing, but a lot of them are very singular, whereas U2 is, you know, they'll write about anything. I mean, if you want to tear yourself apart, sit and deal with mothers of the disappeared.
Oh, yeah, right.
And what conflict does that not apply to?
Yeah.
You know, even though it was a specific thing, you know. So, and I think, I'm trying to think, on the 2017 Joshua Tree tour, there was a song they played. It might have been, I don't think it was Mothers of the Disappeared, but it was one of those songs, and they projected the image. This is at the LA College. No, it was the Rose Bowl. Yeah, Rose Bowl. I think that's what it was. Either way, giant stadiums. And there was this sheet that they passed around the audience.
Oh, yeah.
It was huge. And I forget what song they played, but they projected this girl's image, this Syrian girl's image on it, because that was the cause of the day. And they're still dealing with that, right, all these years later. And then that song ends, but that sheet keeps going around.
Yeah, I saw that.
And there's
Miami. I was in the second deck in Miami, and I saw the sheet going, and then I saw it on the floor, GA in Tampa. So I got to witness it going all the way around from the floor, which was great.
And she's not on the sheet the entire time, but that conflict is there. So as we have moved on in the show and in life, and that girl, she doesn't even exist anymore, but she was there. And you see the sheet come around. At least that's how they did it in LA. And it was powerful because you realize, like, you know, I felt bad for a second about this person and this kid, and I was moved by it, but that thing still exists. You know, we still have this conflict in the Middle East. We still have this conflict in Burma. We still have this conflict. And they're not afraid to go to any of these places and sing about it. That's not what world famous rock and roll bands are supposed to do. You know, like, and if they do, they write about it in a hotel. They don't actually go to the place and go, right.
Yeah. Or they don't go to Sarajevo or, you know, or, So, well, and that speaks to, U2 has always taken chances, right? By consistently reinventing their sound. The surface, the core of their sound is always the same, but by consistently shifting the surface details of their sound, that is a microcosm for how U2 views everything, right? Like we can't look at everything from the same lens. Like we have to expand our view. We have to change our perspective every once in a while, because if we get stuck, we're gonna miss things.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
And there's just, again, there's so many ramps to talk about different things, but within this project, I'm going to try to keep us on track. But there's so much to all of these things. The reinvention of the songs, explaining all of the events that happen around, you know, like obviously not just the fact that Pavarotti It shows up in their life because
Yeah.
Bono will write a song for anyone, right? I mean, he writes a song for Nina Simone. He'll write a song for anyone. BB King, on and on and on. But that whole thing about Pavarotti in the book, and then in the not book tour, and now in the movie, it's just like I can see why he put a lot of time into that, because there's a lot in that little vignette piece within this longer movie that reminds us all, like, hey, it takes one thing, 8 seconds to change everything.
Yeah, well, and the whole baritone who thinks he's a tenor.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that highlighted, I think, a key aspect of Bono's relationship with his father, or how Bob thought of Bono. Right. Despite his world, when U2 got famous, apparently Bob was still calling Bono a baritone and thought he was a tenor, despite Bono hitting tenor notes. Like, I've sung tenor. Yeah. I know what those notes are. They're hard to hit. When you're a tenor, they're hard to hit, right? But it showcased Bob Hewson's skepticism, which is, it's so Irish of him, right? To be skeptical of the outside because it's too much. Because, as Bono says, his father believed to dream was to be disappointed, right? It was to set yourself up for disappointment. And so I think what's so bold about what Bono has done is he has, as he said, he has accomplished the dreams that his dad didn't have the courage not to pursue, but he didn't even have the courage to dream of them for lots of reasons, right? But one of them is just he couldn't, which is that's tragic in and of itself, right? Someone who loved music apparently as much as Bob Hewson did, as great of a tenor as he was, and all he wanted to do was move people and be moved by music, but he couldn't because of the position he was put in. That's pretty heartbreaking. Oh, and then by the way, you lose your wife all of a sudden at the funeral. Oh man, that's terrible. Oh, and then by the way, your 14-year-old teenage asshole of a son wants to be a rock star. Are you effing kidding me?
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So, thinking from that perspective, you're like, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and then the older man in me says, Paul Hewson, he gets to go try to be a rock star, and there wasn't anything to give him that. He found something and he cobbled it together and had that gift. But Bob didn't, probably shouldn't, even if his wife was alive. He had a job to do, and to take that leap with nothing. It's so impossible. You can't, when you're an adult, do. If you made that, that's a very adult decision, even at a younger age. Like the kid that decides he's going to go to West Point and commits to an adult decision in the 8th grade and says, I'm going to do this, become a great student. We make these decisions early. It's like, this is the life I get to lead. I can dream about that.
Right.
I'm not going to be that because it's just really, I have to do this because this is the more reliable path. I can't blame anybody for taking we all take the reliable path quite often.
Right. Well, and I think what Bono's trying to say is he finally understands that now.
Sure.
Where I think before he started performing as Bob Hewson on this not book tour, when he was just singing about him and writing songs, it wasn't a complete understanding. And now he is an older dad himself, right?
Yeah.
Who, his own son is now in a pretty successful rock band himself, right? Right. And so, perspectives change because life happens. And I think what Bono's trying to tell us is that, Dad, I think I have a better understanding of why you weren't able to do that. Why you weren't able to pursue that path. But what Bono's also saying is, I still don't quite understand why you weren't a little more supportive of me then.
Yeah.
Because
there is some cruelty in that.
I think any 60-year-old is going to reflect on his 20-year-old self and think that about his father.
Yeah.
Or a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't give him an inch, right? And maybe he didn't need an inch, but at some point, Bono was successful enough. And look, Bono's going to have his own impostor syndrome stuff. I mean, he talks about that, But your dad, like, hey, it's time to lighten up on that shit, And then all of a sudden there was no time, and time didn't matter anymore. and it's a thing. All of us. A friend of mine passed away just about a year ago. He was alive in the middle of his life, so of course it's a mess because no one would want. Like if I was to lights out any adult that I know, they'd be, whoa, I need a few minutes at least to get some things sorted out. But that's not how my friend George went. He was stung by some wasps, went face down, and never woke up. And so he was in the middle of life doing chores, and then he was dead, right? And it's crazy when you think about what an adult life is and the work that's on the table that you're trying to get to.
Your audio went out.
My audio went out. Okay.
Just past
How do I fix that?
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if that's me or you, or it's hard to tell. Let's see here. If anybody's listening, let me know. Let me try this. I'm going to switch my microphone. I switched my microphone. Can you hear me now?
Still nothing.
I think that's you.
It's me. Okay. Let me check me.
I think. Yeah. Let's see. I'll keep talking. And hey, everybody, this is Pete from the Break It Down Show. Sometimes we have technical difficulties. It happens everywhere, so no big deal. Here's your chance to go to the Break It Down Show, breakitdownshow.com. You can go to the PayPal link, and you can invent your own subscription. You want me to do something? I'm going to come by and grab some lunch, whatever. Great. Talk to me. Let me know what you want. Order through that. Also, I've got some new shirts that just came out. And so while Chris tries to see if it's his end of things, I think you guys can hear me. So I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Aha. Okay, good.
There you go. Excellent.
I'll just
Sorry
plug in.
about that.
Anyhow.
I'm not sure what happened. But.
Yeah, let me back out and come in for a whole new thing.
Perfect.
I know we've discussed this, but this is all part of this new thing, this new reinvention of these songs that are older. I love two things that I guess we could talk about when we look at these songs. And I just love the entire concept. Again, I'm 55. I think about these songs, and if you go back and sing them in a different way, a great example is Live from Daryl's House when what's the guy from Matchbox 20? I can't think. Yeah. He's like, let's do Kisses on My List, but put it in a minor key, and I'll make it more make it a lament, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and there's so much richness in this thing. When they don't play So Cruel for years and years and years and years for whatever reason, and then they start playing it, and then they age the song, and at the end you land on We Were So Cruel, because that is how that went down, and the new version of Bad is not the newest, but the one from Songs of Surrender, that one. It's just so incredible. And if you've had anybody in your life stuck in addiction, that whole conversation is captured, that whole experience is captured in that song.
Right. I reference Bad a lot in the book because it's just a fantastic song, but it illustrates a lot about you too, from a sonic perspective, from a lyrical perspective, from a thematic perspective, right? I mean, these new versions, I think we talked about this too. I'm always hesitant for remixes or alternate versions because the studio versions of these albums are sacrosanct, right? Like Achtung Baby was one of the albums that got me through high school, and so I know what Achtung Baby should sound like. I know what Until the End of the World sounds like, and so when you change it, guess what I'm going to notice? Guess what I'm going to fixate on at first? Everything that's different from that song that I've listened to for going on 35 years now, right? So like I have a really hard time with that, but it's my responsibility as a pop music scholar to be like, all right, I have to put that bias aside, especially with this band, right? And so I did that with Songs of Surrender, and I'm really glad I did. It actually turned into a really good running album for me, which is weird because a lot of people associate running songs with faster tempos, but these down tempo or stripped versions actually provide a lot of mental fodder to think about when I'm on the road running, and that was surprising. Like and like some of these songs bring me to tears. Like I'm at mile 4.8, right? And he's in the middle of Sometimes You Can Make It on Your Own, right? Don't leave me here alone. And it's that one measure of silence. You're like, oh, yeah. Like it literally takes the breath out of me and starts the waterworks all at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'm trying not to die in the middle of this run. Right? Like, so
yes.
What they did with Songs of Surrender, again, right? It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. This one,
right, of course,
more than most, just because, again, the songs that they're based on are so well known and are held so dear, not just by me, but by all of us diehard U2 fans, that when you change something, it's a tough pill to swallow at first. But what has helped me was the fact that it was the band changing. It wasn't some random producer. It wasn't some random DJ remixing this. It was Edge working with the rest of the band, saying, all right, let's reimagine Sunday Bloody Sunday. It's like, oh, all right. When it's the actual guys doing it, I'm much more open-minded to it.
Yeah, no, and it is wonderful, and like all U2 albums, it continues to grow on me, and I can go to that and it's like, it is okay. It's going to take me a minute. But I learned this a long time ago, like, oh, you know what? I don't really like this very much. Let me listen to it again, and I'm like, oh wait, I got there, and then all of a sudden you love it, I don't go back to October enough, and it has never worked for October for me. I don't think October is bad, but it is not great like the other stuff is great.
I feel the same way. It is, it is of course part of the catalog, and as a U2 scholar, it's there. No, it's hardly ever one that I reach for. Be like, ooh, you know what I haven't played in a while is October, but I'll be reading an interview or I'll be listening to something that will remind me of October, or it'll reference oh yeah, you know what? Let me pop that on real quick. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is actually there's some highlights here, right? It is musically a little bit inconsistent, but it's a sophomore album made under some weird circumstances, and so as a sophomore album, it's actually not that bad. And then to recover with War, holy moly! Like just, What a rebound.
And we've talked about this before. The band's back catalog seems to get better with age for a lot of reasons. One of them is you realize, oh, there's a lot more there. I wasn't to the level that they were at. And so you can go back to War and you're just like, this band, how far did they come in this time? And then they go to Unforgettable Fire. I didn't realize how great Unforgettable Fire was. Right. And then you go to Joshua Tree and you're like, what? I saw Simple Minds the other day.
Nice.
And, it was so good. They were so great. Even Modern English was great too. Soft Cell was okay. Soft Cell. You got Mark out there and he does his thing. But man, those two bands, Simple Minds and U2, they're tent poles in that big music, which is funny. If you look up the word big music as a genre, it's like the internet has erased it and they don't remember that time existed. But then you hear Simple Minds live and you're like, oh, that's what big music is. They absolutely, I mean, it's not arena rock, right? But it's built for arenas. It's built for the Hollywood Bowl. That music is enormous. It's enormous.
And you too, sing-alongs, right? Like,
it's so incredible. And to get some of the superstructure that you get from Surrender, from the movie, and how these things come to being, and to see them sort of stripped down, and how you get to I Will Follow, and the Sunday Bloody Sunday segment of the movie. It's great when you insert it into the whole machine, the whole thing, and you're like, man, there's just, it's not filled with Easter eggs, but there's just so much connectivity that you can see the sinew of everything. It's wonderful.
Yes, I've enjoyed that as well. What I've taken to lately is watching reaction videos to random folks on YouTube, random quote unquote music aficionados, whatever their qualifications are. Doesn't matter. But people listening to YouTube songs for the first time, right? Yeah. And I like to not have heard Sunday Bloody Sunday. So to be alive longer than 18 years in 2025 and to not have heard Sunday Bloody Sunday, I'm like, well, where have you been? But you know what? It doesn't matter, because the issue is, okay, so you're hearing the song for the first time, and it's amazing to see these reactions. Like Larry starts off, and the first reaction is, "Damn, those drums are tight." I'm like, if you're already getting a reaction 3.5 seconds in, boy, this is gonna be one time, right? And And as I'm watching these reaction videos, I wonder what new U2 appreciators or people who are new to the U2 universe, for lack of a better word, what they would think of something like Songs of Surrender, what they would think of Stories of Surrender, right? Because a lot of people who are new to U2, like a lot of these videos start with, oh, I used to think XYZ of U2 because I used to think Bono was a blowhard, et cetera, et cetera. Or I heard this one song as a kid and I hated it, and so it's colored my perception of U2 ever since then. I wonder what those newer fans would think of a reimagined Beautiful Day, for example, or reimagined Sunday Bloody Sunday. I often wonder that because it's hard for me to imagine being a new fan of that stuff. So that's always curious to me, right? With these new reissues, because the diehard fan base is going to be split. So I wonder what the non-diehards think of that.
Yeah, it's interesting to think, young folks, and this is one of the things like when folks have gotten mad, and they always bring up, "I want to do a damn free album." Oh, I'm so mad about that. And I'm like, you guys, first you got to get over that. Second, you're mad at Apple. You have Apple products all over your house. They bought the rights to release the album, and sure, the band's on that ride with them, but like that's your complaint.
Yeah, right.
Like you got to do better than that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I wanted to go back to Bad for a second. There's something else I wanted to say about that. When I first heard it, this is just ridiculous, but I'm a mid-teen when I first heard it. I have no idea it's about drugs. No, not a clue. No idea about why you might be hooked on drugs. Yes, bad decisions, of course, but also, hey, by the way, car bombs, Then you see it, was it in Rattle and Hum, the movie, and he performs it, and you're like, oh, that song's about drugs. By the way, I just recently, in the last couple of years, found out that Relax from Frankie Goes to Hollywood was about dudes filleting dudes, which, okay, great, no problem. But we all thought it was innocent. So did our parents. So these realizations come out. You're like, wait a second. So, I'm gobsmacked by that. And then, I had a girlfriend that probably is still a drug addict. I have a friend that has deep addiction problems, and I've had friends who've had friends. And then that whole song became a real big thing, much bigger than it was originally, because now I can see it. Because back then it was like you put a cassette in and you put a record on, and you sat down and you went on the journey. And if you didn't have the images, it's almost like your last name. If you've never heard anybody say your last name out loud, they're probably like, how do I say this? Even though it's pretty simple. Like if you don't know how to say Netanyahu because you've never heard anybody say it, it's the same thing with Bad, with Pride. Like, I wasn't unaware that MLK was around or that he was assassinated, but I was 14 and he'd only been dead, 16 years, right? Nothing, right? Like you think 16 years ago, shoot, that's when Sully was landing that airplane. It's not that long ago. And these songs take on so much more meaning. And I don't know a whole lot of bands that do that to their stuff.
Yeah, well, that whole, I never noticed it about that song. I find I have that experience with U2 more than with anybody else, with anybody, with any other band. Like there's some songs and some albums that I know, like really well, not just from a fan point of view, like, oh my God, I've listened to it a million times, but like I have training in music theory. So like I listen to things a little bit differently. And when I tell you that I've listened to certain songs like dozens and dozens of times, I have from professional standpoints, right? So like I'm following certain things, and routinely, I am flabbergasted at details that I'm like, oh my God, has that always been in there? Or, oh my God, this is what it means. Or at connections that are made to previous songs or previous albums or previous quotes. It's really amazing how the word you just used, connected, U2's catalog is. That's one of the fun things that I have found doing what I do, right? And that's actually one of the reasons that I turned to music theory as a profession, because when I was an undergrad and the idea crept in my head, I was like, well, yeah, like I'm listening to this piece of music that I thought I knew really well, and I keep hearing new things,
Yeah.
because it's because of the instruction I'm getting, and I was kind of steered that way. And when I started to write this book in the fall, I was like, well, let me go back and reflect. And U2 has been with me for every major milestone in my life since Auckland Baby.
It's crazy.
I have it written down. It Octung is the high school album, right? And then Pop was the college album. And then, but I was also in college, or I just graduated college when All You Can't Leave Behind came out. And I distinctly remember sitting down with friends I worked with talking about All You Can't Leave Behind and how it calls back to old U2, but it still sounds like U2. And I had no inkling that I would write a dissertation on that. This was back in 2000. Like I wasn't even in grad school yet. And then, U2 was with me after I took the GRE, and U2 was with me in graduate school when they released Atomic Bomb, and I used their music for a seminar paper, which turned into a conference paper, which turned into the seat of my dissertation, which turned, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like U2 literally is a key component of the soundtrack of my life. And
Same.
And because of that, every time I listen to songs that I think I know really well, I hear new things. And then you throw on top of it new versions of these songs, like the version of Bad on Songs of Surrender, which is like, man, right? Like that's a really nice alternate version of that because it highlights different things and it doesn't take away from the original because the original, is the original, but it puts a new spin on it that I happen to appreciate.
Yeah. No, for sure. And there's a lot of things that we can talk about with the catalog. Let's go back to the movie just a little bit here because that was ultimately what and I said we were going to get way off track, but it all goes together. So you've seen the movie. I guess let's start the show over again. What are your thoughts on the movie?
It was really well done. I thought it was emotional for me, but part of that is because I'm a really diehard fan, but part of it is, he told a compelling story in a compelling way, and it was filmed really well. I thought the audio, I thought his voice sounded fantastic, which is really, it's really nice to think about that in relation to what the band is recording now. I thought the cinematography and the staging of it were really, really well done. I thought it was a nice adaptation of the actual show that we saw, right? Because it was different with the whole with the light.
Sure.
I thought, that to me also, has always been a key component to a U2 show. Mm-hmm. Whether lights on, off, flashing, or positioned at the right place, turning on or turning off at the right time. It sounds like such a simple element of stagecraft, but when it's done well, you're like, perfect. When it's not done well, you're like, who the hell is running this piece of shit? Right? And even something as simple as black and white lights behind him, right? It was very reminiscent of the Vertigo tour and of the Elevation tour, right? Very, very simple in the back. I thought it was great. It was wonderful, and it put a slightly different spin on some stuff that we're all familiar with now, which is very YouTube.
Yeah. When you look at everything they do, we talked about this in a little bit, but Gavin Friday, Googie, Willie, all these people that contribute artistically, can you sense when they turn their genius on and put it into something, or is it undetectable? I mean, because you look at these things and listen to these things at a high level, are you able to discern when someone's influence is there or not?
Sure. Oh yeah. I mean, Willie Williams has a very distinct design language, show design language, right? And the quote unquote words that he uses for his design language change for each tour, but that's because each tour is different. And that's a key thing that I think Willie Williams does really, really well, is that he keys in or he's able to key in with his show construction, just what exactly U2 is after.
Yeah.
You know, as Devlin has talked about working with U2, she's design extraordinary.
Tons of people have done
that. Yeah, right. But the way that they talk about it, you hear that when U2 talks about the stage and about performing. Like, they don't just talk about performing as, oh yeah, man, we're out there with our guitars, blah, 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 blah. They talk about that element as part of a larger show. Because these guys are professionals. They are professional performers. They know exactly, they're not just playing songs. They are performing show. And actually, this is a paper that I want to write. You know, that most of their shows have an arc, but particularly the Innocence and Experience tour, that show, right, is like, it's as close to a musical as a rock show can get, I think.
I like it.
Yeah. And so that's a project that has been brewing for damn near a decade now. And
I have one too. Like, if I ever decided to get serious and write these things, I would like to look at, you know, because we have like pathos, eros, all these different words for love and everything. But Bono explores love from many angles. So I think it's more, best I can do right now is spherical, and just tie them all and just put the arrow through the sphere from where each one comes is kind of how I envision the graphic. You know, not that would be easy to see, but it would be illustrative of like, this is not just I love Chris like a brother who loves you too, right? Then there's another arrow coming from another direction. It's like, you know, whatever it is, right? And so, yeah, there's something there to that.
I'm so glad you said that, because part of what I explained with my book in Bono's chapter. So my book is an exploration of U2's music, but it's an exploration of how the music is a reflection of the identities of these men. Right? And so part of part of the Bono chapter is I'm writing about how he thinks about love and how he uses the word love. And he uses the word love both as a noun, right? The love of someone, the love of he, my love for you. He uses it as a verb, I love you, I love to do this. He also uses it as a direct address. Hello, love. But when and where he uses it in their career is a little bit different. I'm on the verge of finding a pattern here, but I'm so glad you brought that up, because yes, this is an idea that's been brewing since I graduated from graduate school. I was like, damn, Bono, you know, thinks about the word love a lot. So much so, in fact, that statistically, he uses the word love in about half of U2's songs. There's your theoretical negative thing.
Right. Yeah.
Like not just in the title, but actively uses it in the song. And so what I'm trying to figure out, what I'm writing about, is not just his use of it, but what does that reflect about Bono's personality, about Bono's identity.
So what I can't figure out is how many kinds of love are when love comes to town, because that's just not a simple love. It's a lot of arrows.
Or in Until the End of the World, when he's saying love, love, love. What kind of love is he talking about there? Right? Because that relationship between Jesus and Judas is really complicated. So and so I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is a core component of Bono's chapter. In fact, Bono's chapter I've entitled Bono, the antagonistic mystic and the loquacious lover.
Loquacious. I love it. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm glad we got a chance to talk about that. When do you think you have that book done and published?
The draft I hope to have done by the end of the summer. I'm going to contact publishers when I have the draft. So, you know, I hope to have somebody saying yes by the end of the year. Yeah. Good. So maybe 2027 we'll see it. Probably, in hard copy. Yeah, once it's all edited.
Yeah, and if everybody watching, that's totally normal. Like that's
that's actually pretty fast. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's just, you know, it just takes over a year to do a book, and we're well into 2025. What else about the movie stands out? I don't want to use all of your time up, but you know, there's so much in there. So what stood out? Yeah, well, it was, you know, it was a very intimate show. I mean, the show itself is intimate, and what struck me about the movie, about the film, was how intimate it was filmed. Right, there were a lot of really close shots of Bono, and you know, someone who is a little more vain wouldn't have liked that, because Bono's not a young guy anymore, right? Like, he doesn't look like Joshua Tree Bono anymore, which is
You know, like my wife and I talk about this a bunch. Like Seinfeld is one of our favorite programs because we know it so well. It's one of our fall asleep programs, right? But Jerry Seinfeld is 35 years old in our minds because we watch Seinfeld, which is from it's 90s Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah.
You know, Bono had an HD camera right here, right? And like so super detailed, but he's accepted the fact that he's one of the elder statesmen of rock. I think musically U2 has accepted that, but I think Bono himself, I think, has accepted his position now as all right, I'm one of the old guys. And his quote about nobody needs a new U2 album, ... unless it's exceptional.
Right.
Right. So he's still focused on making good stuff. Despite his standing now within the rock community, right, as one of the elders. But I love the way it was filmed. It felt very personal. It felt very intimate. The musicians behind him, right, Jackknife Lee, the harpist, and the cellist, Gemma, and the cellist's name I forget. I'm so sorry, but they were phenomenal. What a great arrangement. And hats off to Jackknife Lee, as someone who has arranged music, and to arrange these songs, right? Songs that are so well known by so many people for so long, that's hard to do, right? That could have been really intimidating. But, thankfully Bono has worked with Jackknife before, and they have a good working relationship. And I thought the musical arrangements were stellar. I thought they were really, really good.
Mm. Yeah. By the way, Kate Ellis was the other musician. She was the cellist. And just want to make sure we get in there. I did not know that off the top of my head, but I had to look it up because I want to make sure we give credit where credit is due. The movie's great. If anybody's interested in watching, it's on Apple, and we did and we may or may not subscribe to Apple, but that's why they put these things out to give us a little trial. So we've done a trial, and I've watched it a couple of times. I think anybody who likes U2 or is close to U2 should watch it. If you haven't been to the Sphere and there's an act that you think that you will like, yes, it is pricey to go there, but it is going to be the best concert experience you've ever had. So you should go see the Sphere with whatever band you choose, whether it's Backstreet Boys, the Eagles, or U2 again at some point. Those are my basic plugs. Obviously, when Chris's book comes out, we got a little bit of time, so calm yourselves down. But definitely go check it out. But go check out his work in general. I'll put a link up for your stuff there. What else should we do before we wrap this thing up?
Oh man, now the YouTube fan base is in waiting mode, right? Now I think finally with the film out and Bono, the press cycle is going to wind down for this, but I'm hoping by the end of the year we're going to get some official word about some new content, new music, which will be awesome. Yeah. It'll be more stuff to write about and to think about, but I am champing at the bit for that. Bono sounds excited for it. Edge sounds excited for it in a couple of interviews that I've heard, and Larry apparently is doing well with his recovery. So I'm excited for that. That's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah. And also we're 50 years, we're in that.
Yes, next year. Holy cow. Yeah. Drummer seeks musicians to form band. Holy cow. 50 years ago. Right. Well, anniversaries like that are not lost on Bono and company, so they're going to celebrate it somehow. I'm hoping that they do their fan club a little bit of justice. Especially longtime subscribers. I hope be like, all right, for those of you who've been with us, maybe even since the propaganda days, but with us since this whole online thing got started in the early 2000s. If you've routinely re-upped your subscription, I hope they take care of us because we love them, and they know that, and they should take care of us. I hope. In some really cool 50-year anniversary kind of way.
I don't want to complain too much, and I know a lot of people do. So but I do want to take a moment to talk about this a little bit. For a while, I maintained 2 fan club accounts because I just want them to get paid, and they're my one indulgence when it comes to music. I'll still go see other acts and everything else, but if U2 put something out, I'm on board, and I have been since the early 80s. So I want to do those things. It does break my heart a little bit when I am scrambling for tickets. Now, I've always been able to try to figure something out. Sometimes that a lot more at cost because, look, and there's no way to solve this problem. you know,
Right.
and
Right.
there's so much demand for the tickets that if they don't charge a lot, someone's going to scalp them for a lot more. And it's just it's an unfixable problem. But I'm with you. If you have been a subscriber for a long time, I don't know. I just, you know, I don't need a thanks. I don't need anything for fucking free or whatever, you know,
Right.
but I do get a little disappointed by the things and I've got all the things. I got them over there and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I got it.
I mean,
I
hello,
don't,
right?
yeah. right. Yeah. But yeah, so as creative as they are, I would love to see that creativity come through. There's not ever going to be enough YouTube, and I appreciate that. But yeah, you know, like, and I don't know how you weight it. I don't know how you make it fair. So I'm not going to tell them what to do, but there is some disappointment. I don't mind paying. I love the little free DVDs that I'm never going to play and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I would love to get something like, so I got the invite to try to see the Lotto for the LA or San Francisco showing of the premieres. And I know there's no way I'm going to get that. So it's fine. I'm not complaining about that because there's only so much of that to go around. And it's fucking LA, right? And anybody, you don't have to live in LA to win the LA one. You just pick that one. You're like, I will be there. Oh, okay, great. Yeah. That's a super long shot. But how do we, and I'm asking you, like, what do we want? You know, and I'm not the fanboys to the fanboys for you too. There are people that are way more into it than even I am, and I'm into it a lot. So what can possibly be done to celebrate 50 and really say, hey, you've been there for 50 years or 45 years, right? How do they acknowledge the people that have been around for over a quarter of a century?
I don't know. You know, that's tough because you'll never satisfy everybody, right? And
right.
What I have learned since graduating from graduate school and, you know, diving headfirst into diehard fandom, like I'm a diehard fan, of course, is that there are different kinds of diehard fans out there. And I was not aware of that, or at least I wasn't aware of its scale until I got out from behind the shield of academia. I was like, holy crap. All right. There's the collector who wants the stuff. They want they want the keychain, they want the sweater vest, they want the coaster.
Yeah.
You know, I've got I ordered the playing cards from youtube.com because I think they're awesome. But you know, $25 per pack of playing cards, that's pretty steep. Diehards pay for it, right? But there's the collector. There's the music collector who doesn't care about the stuff, but wants all of the B-sides and all of the behind the scenes tracks and blah blah blah. There's the propaganda people who want the material, right? They want the reading material, and there are the historians who want the maps and the quotes. I don't know how you satisfy everybody.
I don't either. And by the way, a lot of times the t-shirts just don't fit.
Yeah.
Can we get better t-shirts? Yeah. And enough with that stuff. Look, I appreciate everything they do. And ultimately I don't care. I have remained. I turned off my second account because I'm like, Pete, you're being ridiculous. But I do spend money on other things, right? Yeah. So and I right now in my box, I've got a couple of stuff for this project. I don't want a bunch of stuff, right? I just don't. But you know, I'll get a sweatshirt and wear it for a few years and throw it out when it's done. That's sort of how I am. But yeah, I love them to come up with something that will really. I don't need to shake anybody's hand. I don't need a meet and greet. I'm impossible to satisfy. I just want something.
Right. Yeah. What that is, I don't know, because you know, if you gave me the chance to, like, if it were a subscriber special only, like, if you can get yourself to, let's say, the Beacon in New York, right? If you can get yourself there, and if your name is on this list, you'll get into this show. Yeah. And it's just the four of them. You know what I would do? I'd buy a fucking ticket to New York.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
it's all a lot of tickets.
But like, if they also gave me whatever, or if they gave me access or something. Again, I have no idea what it is, because if you ask me on one day, music is good. If you ask me another day, well, tell me more. Since it's the 50th anniversary, tell me more about the history, right? And other days, it's just like, you know what? Just give me a goddamn new album.
Well, and just me being, for me, the one thing I would want is to have someone say yes when I email and say, I'd love to have anyone from the band on the show.
Oh.
You know, and I would be thrilled with that. You know, and I see them using people for these things, and I'm like, okay, that person is younger. I've been a fan longer than that guy's been alive. You know?
Right? Oh,
That's when my angry old man comes out. I'm like, you know, I'm not that angry.
Podcast score this guy because you weren't like, you weren't been alive for 4 albums. How do you know?
Yeah. You know, I mean, yeah, but look, and that's me being unfair, but that's what fans do, right? Like we get a little crazy about this stuff. And you're right. When I realized, like, I'm a big U2 fan, and I looked around, I'm like, oh my God, I'm dinky. I'm like, you know, I don't have to do this when I stand outside. You know, I'm getting ready to go into a concert and none of that kind of stuff. You know, I enjoy it. I get a lot out of it. Every time I dig into the projects, I get so much more out of it, and that's why I love talking to you about it, because you get it, and it's fun to talk to someone who can appreciate the art of it. What, you know, my dad, in his gift to me, part of it was fine music. You know, what Dr. Bob Greenberg calls literate music. I learned about pipe organs from him, you know. So even though my dad and I had this contentious relationship, it wasn't all bad, and there were things that impacted my life. And Bono and U2 in general have taught me how to appreciate all of that. And then when I see them putting all this meat into the body of their work, man, I really appreciate it, because it makes it like, you charge me $100 for an album, I don't care. I know there's $100 of value for me. I'll get years of enjoyment out of it. And so I guess that's my thing, the coda for me to wrap it all up. I guess I'll give you your time to put that weird little coda symbol on your part of the conversation, and then we'll move on to the next thing. And by the way, thank you so much, Chris, for everything that you do. I know you love it, but that doesn't mean that I'm not also super appreciative for all of us out here in U2 land. And when your book comes out, I'll buy it. It's like I bought the last U2 non-U2 made book that came out, because I want to support folks that support the band in that way. So thank you very much for coming on the show, and thank you for what you do every day.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to talk with you and to talk with other U2 heads. You know, I get charged by this, right? Like there are not a lot of people around here who are into it like this. So any chance I get, it kind of gets the juices flowing again. So thank you for that. Yeah, it's just I consider the kind of fan that I consider myself, because of what I do, is I'm a fan of the music first, and so I get so much out of the music, right? That the stuff is nice, but for me, it'll always be about what I hear, what I feel based on what I hear, because that's the thing about U2 that is different for U2 from anybody else, from any other rock band, is the feeling that U2 gives me when I listen to their music is a feeling unlike any other. And for other people, it's, they get that feeling from other sources, and, find your feeling, find your source, because my source is U2's music. I've listened to Where the Streets Have No Name literally hundreds of times, if not thousands. And 50-50 shot whether I'm going to break into tears. Still, to this day, because of how it makes me feel. And that's what I love most about it, is because it gives me a feeling that I get nowhere else. And it's unlike any other feeling. So whatever it takes to give me that, that's what I want.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. Really, for real, try to see if you can stomach the Rogan thing long enough to watch. Because I think it's a very straightforward interview. And I know there was a little bit of press about Bono and Joe disagreeing on something. That's like a slice this big. They really didn't disagree all that much on, and the rest of it was really a fantastic conversation. And one that, shoot, if I had made one that good, I'd be super proud of it, because Bono, a lot of times we see Bono, the guy who's got his talking points, and he's got his talking points in this, but you got to hear a lot of new things, I thought, at least, or new perspectives. And that to me was worth the price of admission. So which I paid nothing.
I will check it out for sure. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, everybody. I will have a show for you all tomorrow on a less enjoyable topic, but that's all right. That's what happens. And Chris, I will talk to you in a second once I finish up with everybody else here. Everybody, you can always subscribe. Pete always likes that. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, folks. Well, that wraps up another episode.